My fellow Americans, we stand at a crossroad, and we either stand and defend our right to vote right now, or we lose it forever. That's why I'm asking you to join with me and millions of Americans across this nation to call upon President Obama to exercise his executive powers and declare a national state of emergency due to the intervention of third parties into our electoral process. We're asking President Obama to commission a new national election with hand-counted paper ballots cast in precincts across the country under the watchful eye of federal and local poll observers. Now, people across this nation are crying and totally miffed about the inexplicable election night results on Tuesday. But my election concerns are as much about process as they are about outcomes. You see, there is no question, it is absolutely irrefutable that the handprints of a third-party intervenor can be found all over America's 2016 presidential election. Now, managing elections, especially with electronic voting machines, is problematic to say the least. A person with sinister intent can insert a chip in a voting machine in a Democratic-leaning precinct and cause all votes for a Democratic candidate to be cast on behalf of the candidate's Republican counterpart. Equally problematic is the fact that the U.S. Supreme Court in 2013 gutted important provisions of the Voting Rights Act. So no longer can federal observers simply walk into certain precincts and observe elections. They must now first secure approval from local officials to even enter polling facilities. So many of the federal observers dispatched in this election may well have been standing outside of polling locations rather than observing election activities. Now remember, America's intelligence community warned us that Russia might hack our elections. And then we concluded our election night with results that no one can explain. America's top pollsters still cannot explain why election night results diverge so dramatically from projections. In fact, everyone was baffled. Pollsters, the presidential campaigns, and the public at large. Now, some might argue that if election night results were the result of interventions by Russia, we would know. Well, I beg to differ. You see, when Russia hacked the email accounts of John Podesta, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and Donna Brazile, and others at the Democratic National Committee, our intelligence community was in the dark. In fact, no one knew until WikiLeaks began to disclose the emails at times that were most advantageous to the Trump campaign and most damaging to the Clinton campaign. Clearly, the actor in this invasion of our election process favors Trump. And could that account for the fact that Trump emerges as President of the United States against all odds. Now, inventorying is one of my expertise, and I tend to think of an election process as an inventorying of the will of the people by the counting of the votes people cast. In any inventory process, not only should we be able to count accurately the first time, but we should be able to validate our counts by a second count. Now, some of you are undoubtedly asking, well, why isn't the Clinton campaign saying anything about this? Why did she concede so readily? Now, remember, when Trump was complaining about our election process being fixed, Hillary Clinton's campaign and the Democrats were talking about the integrity of our election process. So essentially, they preempted their ability to complain about these most troubling results. But to me, this is not about the Clinton campaign or the Trump campaign. This is about you and me and the American electorate at large. Clearly, media and congressional leaders are ready to move forward. They've begun talking about the peaceful transition of power. And while the peaceful transition of power is very, very important, the transition of power to the rightful elected president is even more important. Everything at this time in this election is up for grabs. Supreme Court, Obamacare, gay rights, civil rights, women's right to choose, and more. If ever it is incumbent that we get our election right, it is now. We need our president to show resolve and strength and to declare a national state of emergency in protecting our right to vote. There is no question that a third party has intervened in our election. And we need a new election, again, with hand-counted paper ballots that can be counted and verified through recounts under the watchful eye of federal and local poll watchers. Now, some may be concerned that people who did not vote in Tuesday's elections will opt to vote in a new election. Well, I suspect that there will be Democrats who didn't vote who will vote in this election, in a new election, just as there will be Republicans who didn't vote that will vote in a new election. But as long as those individuals who vote are rightful and legal voters, then our democracy is even better served. Now, I am asking those of you who endorse this proposal to get on your telephones and flood the White House lines. Contact your congressmen and your senators. Be unrelenting. This is the last chance to protect our right to vote.